Have you ever walked into a house and felt, before you even crossed the threshold, that the walls were holding their breath? If you listen closely right now, to this very moment, what would you hear? Silence. Or the cry of someone too small to save themselves? It was 2 in the afternoon on a Monday when Maria Gonzalez climbed the front steps of the Montemayor mansion with a bucket of supplies knocking against her calf and a rag tucked into her pocket like a white flag. She stopped halfway up, one palm to the rail, because the sound rolling down the staircase was not a sound a human heart could ignore. It was not crying. It was a wound. 2 babies, 2 tiny throats pushing pain into a house full of marble and high ceilings. It echoed. It climbed the plaster. It passed through her ribs and lodged there. 25 years old, 3 weeks into this job, and she still hadn't gotten used to it. The twins had cried for 3 hours straight today. Yesterday it was 5. The day before that, 6. She pressed the back of her wrist to her forehead and whispered to herself like a prayer she learned a long time ago. Holy Virgin, have mercy on these little souls. At the top of the stairs, a man wandered the hall the way a sailor wanders a deck in heavy seas. His name was Alejandro Montemayor. He was 34 and rich in ways that did not matter in a room like this. The last weeks had aged him fast. Faint bruises pooled under his eyes, hair wild, shirt half-buttoned like he had forgotten how to finish ordinary tasks. He had that look people get after too many nights in a hospital waiting room, a posture bent by a weight he couldn't put down or share. "Esperanza," he called, voice already breaking. The housekeeper of 20 years hustled down the hall with her small notebook clutched to her chest, the way a nurse might hold charts. 50 years old, neatly pinned bun, face carved by kindness and worry, Esperanza wrote everything that happened here into that notebook. Little things, big things. Who came and went? When the socks were reorganized, when the flowers were replaced, and always now the hours the girls cried. "It's been more than 2 months, Patron," she said softly. "More than 2 months without a good night's sleep for anyone. You need to rest." "Rest?" He laughed once, a sound with no light in it. "How am I supposed to rest while my daughters cry like that? What kind of father would I be if I rested?" On the stairs, Maria paused. Her hand tightened on the rail. She had lost a baby last year, 4 months along. That grief had taught her certain sounds never leave you. They just learn where to hide. Watching this man come apart in his own house tugged at something inside her she had been protecting carefully. She went up the rest of the steps without really noticing her feet move. Alejandro dialed his phone again with trembling hands. "Doctor, it's me. I've called you 3 times today." I know. But they're worse. Please. There must be something." Whatever the voice said back made him pace as if he could outrun the words. "How can you not know what to do?" His jaw tightened. "We've had pediatricians, neurologists, specialists. I've paid. I don't even know how much I've paid. Nothing works." He hung up and pressed his fist against the wall like a man trying to stay standing through a wave. "I am useless," he said almost to himself. "I can't even make my own children stop crying." Maria had never seen a man unravel in this specific way. Something in the rawness of it made her blink hard. The twins' room was at the end of the hall, door half open, pastel light spilling across the carpet. Inside, 2 cribs, a soft pink and a soft blue draped in matching gauze. Rattles in a tidy basket. A mobile that looked like clouds. Everything new, everything unused, because nothing had lulled the babies to sleep for more than a few minutes. She knew the rule. Alejandro was strict about who entered the nursery. She knew it, and still something in her, maybe it was the part of her that remembered the weight of a son she never got to meet, pulled her to the threshold. She stood there for a heartbeat, then 2, and when the smell of baby shampoo and antiseptic reached her, she stepped inside and picked up a tiny sleeper from the dresser. Soft cotton with little white rabbits. She held it against her chest as if cloth could fill a hole. "My angel," she whispered to a child who never had a name. "If you had been born, you'd be about their age." The iron gate in front of the house buzzed open an hour later. The engine of a car cut. Voices on the stairs. Maria set the little pajama down and moved fast. Too fast. Her ankle hit the edge of the dresser and a bottle of perfume slipped off and shattered on the floor in a burst of scent. She bent to catch the pieces at the exact moment Alejandro pushed into the room, desperation in his breath. "The doctors don't know what to do," he said to Esperanza in the hall. "They say they're healthy, but they won't stop crying." He came in carrying Isabella pressed to his chest. The baby's face was brick red, her little fists tight, her eyes swollen from tears. "Papa doesn't know what to do anymore," he murmured, rocking her with a gentleness that contradicted the frenetic energy all over him. In the stroller behind him, Sophia screamed a high, needle-thin scream that collected under the ribs and vibrated there. Maria straightened slowly. She didn't think. Thinking had left the building hours ago. She held her arms out to the father of two and asked in a voice so soft she was not sure he'd hear it, "May I hold her for a moment?" He handed the baby to her before his mind could tell him all the reasons not to. His exhaustion had outrun his caution. The room changed. Sometimes rooms do that when a new wind blows through. Isabella's cries stopped as if somebody tightened a knob. She looked up into Maria's face and put all that looking into it the way only a baby can. Behind them, Sophia's scream fell too. She turned her head toward her sister, toward this stranger's voice that was smooth and warm, like a lullaby turned low. "Easy," Maria whispered, swaying without rocking, a measured movement that begged no muscles to hold on too tight. "It's all right, little one. You're safe." Isabella's eyelids fluttered. The little body that had been a single tense cord melted into a sleeping shape. Real sleep. Heavy, trusting sleep. The kind that pastes a baby's mouth into a sand dune shape and puts one hand open on their chest like a flag. Alejandro stared, his mouth parted. His throat worked around a word with too many consonants. "How did you—" "I don't know, sir," Maria said. "She didn't. She only knew the way your arms remember when a child asks for a certain kind of care, and you answer without vocabulary." Esperanza came to the door and stopped so suddenly her notebook thunked against her chest. "Mother of Guadalupe," she whispered. "How?" Alejandro's eyes were wet and wild. 3 months, he said. "I've been looking for an answer for 3 months, and you?" "They're sleeping." Maria looked down. Isabella's little mouth moved once, a fish kiss in the air, then stilled. In the stroller, Sophia quieted when Alejandro rolled her closer to Maria's hip. The 3 adults stood there, a triangle around 2 tiny islands, and no one dared exhale too loudly. That was when footsteps came up the stairs quick and sure. The kind of footsteps that announce themselves because they always do. "Alejandro," a woman called down the hall, her voice a white coat. "I'm here for the girls." Dr. Victoria Del Valle walked into the nursery like someone who always owned every room she entered. 38, immaculate, hair twisted into a perfect knot, posture straight as a blade, her presence commanded attention without words. She was the kind of person people stopped making noise around without even noticing why. "How are the little ones today?" she started, and then stopped in the doorway because the air in the room did not match the last weeks of her experience. Babies sleeping. Alejandro smiling for the first time in too long. A maid, some girl in a simple uniform holding one of those sleeping babies like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Victoria," Alejandro said quietly, "you won't believe this. They slept." Maria did something. They slept. The doctor's smile paused before it finished arriving. She'd been close to this family for 3 years, since before the twins were born. She'd shepherded Alejandro through grief and panic in a complicated birth. She'd been here after his wife died in delivery, and if we are honest, she'd noticed how a certain kind of gratitude can become something else if you tend it carefully. She had waited. She had helped. She had built her usefulness brick by brick. And now here was a maid holding a miracle in her arms. "Could we have a word?" Victoria asked. Polite, mild, controlled. In the hall, Alejandro glanced toward Maria, and then back to the sleeping girl, and then followed the doctor out. "Do you understand what you just allowed?" Victoria asked once the nursery door clicked. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but anger can be quiet when it is trained. "She made them sleep," he said, barely resisting the urge to point like a boy with a secret. "For the first time in 3 months. And what do you know about this woman's training? Victoria tilted her head. Do you know if she carries anything on her skin that could harm premature infants? Do you know what she put on her hands last? What's in the cleaning products she uses? You are a father, Alejandro. These girls are 3 months old. Their systems are delicate. One wrong thing. They are sleeping, he said, softer, but no less sure. For now, she answered. What if there's a delayed reaction? What if this is chemical, not calming? What if you have to live with the consequences of an untrained person's touch? Do you want to risk that because you are exhausted? Her words planted something in him because that's what her words had always done. Grown twin vines of doubt and dependence around his heart. He rubbed a hand over his face. What do you want me to do? Do not let the maid touch the babies, she said lightly as if discussing lunch. Not for their safety. Inside, Maria continued swaying, smiling without showing her teeth. How did you do that? Esperanza whispered, voice thick. I don't know, Maria confessed. I only felt like I needed to help. In 20 years, Esperanza said, eyes shining as she looked at the soft, open hands of the girls. I have never seen these little ones sleep like that. Not even when they are sleeping. It's a miracle, Maria said, and felt foolish for saying it. But it was, and she had run out of other words. Alejandro came back in. He stared at the girls like a thirsty man watches rain. Maria, he said softly, thank you. God knows I'm grateful. But Dr. Victoria is right. Going forward, you should leave the girls to us. Maria's heart pinched and then cracked. She lay Isabella down in the crib like you lay down something made of light, and with her hands on the side of the cot, she nodded. Yes, sir. Her eyes said something else. Her eyes said she did not understand a world where a person's hands could save a child and be forbidden anyway. Victoria came back with a practiced smile that never quite reached her pupils. I'll give the girls their medication now, she announced, already fetching 2 syringes from her bag. They're sleeping, Esperanza murmured, protective in a way she couldn't explain. Exactly, Victoria said smoothly. It is the ideal time to administer a gentle medicine. They will drift deeper and be more rested. She moved with a confidence honed by years of being told she was right. She measured, she injected. She spoke softly and made notes on her pad in small, neat writing that looked like it couldn't possibly hide anything. Maria watched from the doorway. The odd unease that had tugged at her since she picked up the baby sharpened into something with teeth, the slender vials, the way the doctor's eyes cooled when they slid past her, the offhand comment as Victoria left the nursery. This almost ruined everything, muttered under her breath as if the walls were not listening. The house held its breath again. Then it exhaled. The next morning the crying started like an alarm that never turned off. It filled the kitchen, it poured down the stairs, it soaked into the baseboards. Maria looked up at the ceiling and could feel the sound in her teeth. Esperanza shuffled in with her notebook open and lines between her brows that were new. They didn't sleep, she said without drama. Not really. They cried in their sleep. They cried while they ate. The doctor increased the dose of the medicine. She said it was necessary, to compensate for Friday. To compensate? Maria repeated, frowning. Compensate for what? For sleeping? At 7 sharp, Dr. Victoria arrived with a face even more stern than usual. Where is the maid? She asked, as if asking where a thief kept the jewelry. In the salon, Esperanza said, and when Victoria tilted her chin and said, Bring her, Esperanza obeyed, but slowly, as if her steps could delay something sharp. Maria climbed those stairs again with a new heartbeat. Victoria was waiting in the hall, arms folded, mouth fixed. Maria, right? Yes, doctor. Let me be very clear, Victoria said, voice steady but caring. Under no circumstance are you to touch the infants. They are premature. They are fragile. They are not toys. Do you understand? I only tried to help, Maria said. You did nothing but cause harm. Their bodies were thrown off by whatever contact you had with them. You work with chemicals. You wash with cheap soaps. You carry germs in your hands. These are not accusations. They are facts. And if you disobey what I'm telling you, Victoria let the end of the sentence hang in the air like a picture of a precipice. I will recommend to Mr. Montemayor that you be dismissed immediately. Yes, doctor. Good, The word fell like a stamp. Now, let me tend to my patients. The nursery door closed behind her with a click that made Maria feel like a child outside a classroom waiting to be called in for punishment. She stood in the hallway, humiliation prickling her skin. She wondered if she had hurt them. She wondered how you could hurt a child by holding them, and then wondered why she was the only person asking that question today. Inside, Victoria took a syringe from the small thermal bag that had its own zipper and its own secrets. Not the same syringe Alejandro had seen last week, a different one. She pulled a clear liquid into it, the kind of clear that wants you to pretend it's just water, and injected it through the nipple of one bottle, then the other. "We'll fix this," she murmured, the way she might murmur to a plant she wanted to train along a fence a certain way. The stimulant she'd been using for weeks didn't have a taste. It did have a hunger. It made small hearts beat faster and small nerves misfire. It made babies cry so long a father would sell the moon for a cure. It made a mother think of how it would feel to be indispensable. It had a twin, too, a calm syrup she left in the refrigerator as a prop to distract attention from the drama she was directing. Her plan had been simple. Keep the babies agitated. Keep the father desperate. At the right moment, show him relief. Let gratitude do what seduction could not. Friday's fluke had threatened that plan. Today, she doubled the dose. By mid-morning, the babies sounded like sirens, and Alejandro called and called and called again, and Victoria told him to trust her, and Maria stood in the corridor with her hands clenched around the handle of a mop and felt her own body respond to the sound the way bodies do when the threat is real, even if the threat is a lie. She had to do something, but she had been told not to. The tension between those two roads was enough to split anyone in two. She noticed something in the bathroom bin as she scrubbed the sink and empty bottle of infant sedative, the same brand Victoria always insisted she used. Empty. In the trash. If the medicine was being used, why was this empty? If the medicine was working, why were the babies worse? A seed of suspicion sprouted clean through her fear and widened. By noon the next day, Maria was in the downstairs kitchen, wiping counters that did not need wiping, listening to the girls cry upstairs for 8 straight hours. Esperanza walked in, notebook open to a page dense with tiny, neat writing. "Can I ask you something?" the housekeeper said, lowering her voice. "Does it seem strange to you, too?" "It does," Maria said, grateful. "I thought I was the only one." "In 20 years, Esperanza said, I have never seen babies cry like this. And I've never seen a doctor come every day for months either. Before the girls were born, she came only when the patron called. Now she's here uninvited, as if the house belongs to her." Maria's pulse picked up. She looked at the notebook. "You write everything down, right?" "I do. Who comes? Who goes? When? It is an old habit." "Show me," Maria said. "What time does the doctor arrive? What time do the babies start screaming?" Esperanza flipped through and pointed. "Monday, doctor arrived at 7 UA, gave medicine 7:30. Babies started crying worse at 8:30. Tuesday, doctor arrived 7 UA, gave medicine 7:15. Babies worse at 8:15, always 1 hour after." "If the medicine is to calm," Maria said, jaw tightening, "then why do they get worse after?" "Maybe that is normal?" Esperanza suggested without conviction. "It isn't," Maria said. "I don't think it is." Alejandro thundered down the stairs in that frantic half-run parents do when they are told there is another emergency upstairs. "Where is Victoria?" he asked. "I called. She isn't answering." "She isn't here yet," Esperanza said. "They've been crying 8 hours," he said. "They'll have seizures. They'll—" His voice broke like a rope. "Sir," Maria said carefully, "may I suggest something?" "What?" "Don't give them the medicine today. Just once. See what happens." "Not give them the medicine?" He stared as if she'd suggested jumping off the roof. "Just to see. If they are really calmer without it, then—" "They need it," he said, voice climbing. Victoria explained their systems are— What did she say? "Altered. The medicine is to correct it." "What if it's the medicine that is altering them?" Maria asked. "Enough, Maria," he snapped, more from fear than anger. "She is a doctor. She knows what she is doing." He didn't see it. But the moment the phone rang, Maria and Esperanza exchanged looks. The call was from Victoria. She was on her way. "Give them another dose," she said smoothly. "It's in the nursery refrigerator." They watched him fetch a bottle from the tiny fridge by the crib. They watched him pour measured drops into tiny mouths. Maria saw the cap. It sat crooked. "The seal has been broken," she said to Esperanza later when they were alone. "See the edge? Someone opened this and closed it again." "How do you know?" Esperanza asked. "I've cleaned houses for years," Maria said. "I learned what gets moved when people don't think anyone is watching." They decided to watch. Victoria arrived looking more like relief than a person. She moved through the house with her small thermal bag tucked against her side, the medical bag everyone recognized hanging from her shoulder. She didn't know anyone else had noticed the little cooler until that morning. She walked into the nursery. She didn't examine foreheads. She didn't listen to small chests with a stethoscope. She took out what she needed, injected clear into the bottles, smiled down at the girls like a cartoon image of kindness, and left. "Look," Maria whispered to Esperanza at the window that overlooked the nursery door. She didn't examine them. "Strange," Esperanza said. "When she leaves," Maria whispered, "show me what she left." They went upstairs together. Esperanza opened the small fridge. "This is the bottle," she said, handing it to Maria. The label said natural infant sedative. The cap said otherwise. "Someone tampered with this," Maria said. "I swear it." A thin cry rose from the crib, sharp, then sharper. Within 15 minutes, the room was full of that wound sound again. "Exactly an hour," Maria said. "Holy Virgin," Esperanza whispered. "What do we do?" "Tomorrow," Maria said, "if you can, pretend you forgot something and go back into the nursery when she's there. Tell me what she does." The dawn came early. Esperanza arrived in the kitchen excited and afraid, because the things she had witnessed had blown her mind open. "She had a syringe," she whispered, pulling Maria into a corner where the refrigerator thrummed. "Not like the ones we have. She put it through the cap. She injected a clear liquid into the bottle. And then, this is the part I cannot explain. She touched a drop to her tongue. She tasted it, and she smiled like it was perfect." Maria felt her blood chill. Doctors do not taste medicine unless they are trying to hide what the medicine is. "We have to tell him." "He won't believe us," Esperanza said sadly. "He trusts her." "Then we need proof," Maria said. When Victoria breezed into the kitchen that morning, she told them the twins were sleeping like angels and left them their usual medicine. And Maria noticed the small thermal bag again, the zipper gently humming when Victoria's fingers tapped it. Doctors can carry coolers for real reasons. But what had Victoria tucked into hers? Alejandro walked in a few minutes later, looking a decade younger. "They slept," he said, half laugh and half sob. "Victoria said it was the new formula," he added quickly as if trying the idea on. "Sir," Maria tried, "they slept the one night you forgot to give the medicine?" "That was a coincidence," he said. "You told me yourself you forgot," she said gently. He stopped. He replayed the memory. "I did forget," he said slowly. "I was so tired I fell asleep in the chair. And they slept." He frowned. No, it's just chance." Upstairs, a cry started, small and then big. He headed for the nursery. "Let's try one more thing," Maria said. "Please, just the morning." "If they get worse," he began. "If they get worse, we call another doctor immediately. We stop the experiment, I promise." He stood there, held hostage by two opposing fears. He took a deep breath and nodded. At 10 that morning, the babies who had woken crying settled without medicine. Alejandro sat in the chair and watched something ordinary, which felt extraordinary. He watched a baby doze after milk and wake for a while, and look around and then drift off again because her nervous system wasn't buzzing like a power line. "Do you see?" Maria whispered. He did. He opened his mouth to say it when the phone rang. "How are they?" Victoria asked, and a lifetime's habit made him say, "Better." And a moment's fear made him add, "Yes, I gave the medicine," because he didn't want to accuse a doctor of something terrible without proof. After he hung up, Maria stared at him. "Why did you lie to her?" "Because I need to be sure," he said. "Before I accuse the person who saved them at birth of something, I need to be sure." How do we become sure? Maria asked. We test, he said. We test what she leaves. We test what they become. They decided on a simple plan. Morning without medicine, afternoon with it. If they got worse after the afternoon dose, he would call someone else. If they got better without it, he would call someone else anyway. The third day he stood by the crib while Victoria walked around with her soft hands and soft voice. They are doing very well, she said. Keep up the doses. I will adjust again this evening. She gathered her bags, tucked the little cooler under her arm, and left. 15 minutes later, the twins' eyes were too open, glassy, watching things that weren't there. 15 minutes after that, the crying started the way a storm starts somewhere far away, then everywhere all at once. Alejandro's face hardened into something new. Enough, he said. He called a different doctor. Dr. Emiliano, I need you. Today. The voice said he would come at 4. Before then, Maria looked out the nursery window and flinched because there was Victoria under the jacaranda tree, half behind the trunk, watching the house. She's spying, Maria whispered. Because she knows we are on to her, Esperanza said, goosebumps on her arms. 15 minutes before the new doctor was set to arrive, the phone rang again. This is the local precinct. We've received a complaint, a voice announced. A report that a household employee is administering controlled substances to 2 infants without a prescription. Alejandro's blood ran cold. That is false. We need to verify, sir. It is protocol. 20 minutes later, patrol cars pulled up outside. Officers came into the nursery and asked who was responsible for the baby's care. A doctor, Alejandro said immediately. We have information, the sergeant said, eyes flicking to Maria, that this woman has been administering medication. That is a lie, Maria said. I have never. Victoria stepped through the doorway with a small grim smile and another officer at her shoulder. Sergeant, as I reported, I found evidence that this employee has been giving the girls drugs. I found this hidden in her room. She pulled a bottle of a controlled medicine from her bag. And this, a paper with scribbles that looked like doses. A forged prescription signed by Dr. Maria Gonzalez. Alejandro's stomach lurched. For a second, his mind tried to hold 2 realities. Maria's open hands in this document with her name in the wrong place. Confusion made anger. I didn't do that, Maria said, voice rising with panic. I've never seen that bottle in my life. You need to come with us, the sergeant said. Please, she said. Please, listen. It's her. She's... The cuffs went on. Victoria touched Alejandro's arm in a gesture that had comforted him before. I'm sorry, she said sweetly. I know you trusted her, but your daughter's safety matters more than your feelings. He turned to the cribs because he didn't know where else to look. He missed the small, satisfied flicker that crossed Victoria's face as the officers took Maria away. The cell was cold and smelled like old soap and paper cups. Maria sat on the concrete and held her forearms and shook. The night was long enough to erase minutes altogether. In the morning, they let her see someone. She thought it would be Alejandro, or the new doctor in a white coat, to say, I can tell the difference between medicine and poison. It was her mother instead, Doña Carmen, face tight with shame and anger. Mama, Maria said, and her voice broke. Don't mama me, Carmen said, and the sharpness in the voice made the walls lean closer. How could you? How could you do this to babies? I didn't, Maria said. They set me up. Stop lying. Your picture's on the news. It's in the paper. Everyone knows you falsified prescriptions. The neighbors are pointing. Your brothers won't leave the house. As far as I am concerned, Carmen's breath hitched. You are dead to me. The door clanged behind her. Maria lay on the floor and cried the way someone cries when their body is trying to turn itself inside out and disappear. The court-appointed lawyer who came later had a tired face and a tone used by people who have seen this before. The evidence looks bad, he said. I am innocent, she said. Do you have proof? I am in a cell, she said. How would I get proof in a cell? Then we prepare for the worst and hope for the best, he said, looking like neither of those things believed in him much. At night, an older inmate came and sat beside her. First time? And she asked. Please, let it be the last, Maria said. What did they say you did? They said I drugged babies, Maria said, and the woman's lips curled like a fist. That's not a good reputation to have in here, she said. If you did it. I didn't, Maria said. I love those girls more than my own life. Then someone did you dirty, the woman said, and they did it real good. By dawn Saturday, the guards were gossiping like people do when tragedy is entertainment. Those babies you poisoned are in the ICU now, one guard announced through the bars like delivering a verdict. Maria's chest closed. What? They're in intensive care, seizures, high fever. The doctors think it's a bad reaction to whatever you gave them. Maria stood and grabbed the bars and rattled them, because the only thing she could do was shake something. I didn't give them anything, she shouted. Let me out. Let me tell someone. Please. Quiet, the guard said, and walked away. The building returned to that empty sound prisons have when you stop making noise inside them. Somewhere across the city, in a hospital corridor that smelled like disinfectant and fear, Alejandro paced and asked the same question 10 times of the same person and got the same answer 10 times. It's withdrawal, Victoria told him when he said the girls had been better. It's a classic presentation. Their bodies got used to the drugs the maid was giving them. Without those drugs, they are dysregulated. It will get worse before it gets better. He accepted what she said because he did not know how to hold a world where a doctor lied about medicine. He watched monitors flash and spike. He watched a nurse wrap a tiny blood pressure cuff around Sophia's arm. He cried in a bathroom because there was nowhere else to put his body for what it contained. Victoria walked the aisle of beds and smiled sadly at nurses who knew her face. When no one looked, she took the little cooler from under her coat and drew up a dose that was enough to make a baby's nerves ring like wind chimes in a tornado. She slipped it into the tiny IV line with the grace of practice. She looked at the blinking camera in the corner and calculated the angle she was at and whether anyone would review anything today, and decided they would not. In the cell across town, the radio in the guard station said Maria's name in a tone reserved for villains. The headline, Housemaid Poisons Millionaire's Twin Daughters. The story ate up television hours. People chanted outside the precinct. Baby killer, someone yelled, and the words were blunt instruments thrown at a building. Maria covered her ears. It did not help. Sometimes miracles do not come with trumpets. Sometimes they come with a question in a hallway, asked by someone everyone thinks can be ignored. On Sunday morning, Esperanza showed up at the hospital with her notebook and her steady hands. Patron, she said, and Alejandro looked at her as if she might have a clue hidden under her apron. May I speak? Of course, he said, because he had run out of ways to say no to decent people. I watched Maria with your daughters, sir, she said. I saw the way she held them. I saw the peace on their faces. That girl would never hurt a child. Not even if you asked her to. The evidence, and he said, and the word was everything. Evidence can be arranged, Esperanza said. A heart cannot, and her heart with them was clean. He wanted to believe her. In some quiet back room inside himself, he did believe her. He was about to say so when Victoria looked up from her phone and cut in. Your focus should be on the girls, she said gently. Going to the precinct will only make you more anxious. Right now, they need your calm. May I ask you something? Esperanza said mildly, turning that sharp gaze toward the doctor. Since Maria was arrested, have the girls improved or gotten worse? The question landed like a stone tossed into still water. Alejandro's face changed as he did the math. Worse, he said slowly. They've gotten worse. It is not that simple, Victoria snapped too quickly. Elimination can take days. You cannot generalize from coincidence. Esperanza didn't argue. She never argued. She suggested, maybe the patron should still speak with the girl, to hear her out, to be sure. When Victoria walked away to take a fake call, Alejandro told Esperanza to stay with the twins and went to the station. He sat in the visitor's chair and watched the door and felt himself do that thing people do when they are about to meet someone who might change their mind. Maria looked smaller than he remembered. Prison lighting shrinks people. How are the girls? She asked before she had said hello. Why do you care? He asked more harshly than he meant. After what they say you did. Because I love them more than anything I have left, she said. And he believed that sentence because there was nothing else in it. No performative sadness, no flattery. Just the truth of someone who had been emptied of everything but love and fear. Explain to me, he said. He needed logic. He needed steps. He needed someone else to arrange facts into a ladder. So she did. She told him about the caps, about the empty bottle in the trash, about the timing in Esperanza's notebook, about the way the girls calmed without the medicine and spiraled after it, about the moment he had seen it himself and chosen to lie to Victoria instead of confront her because to accuse a doctor of poisoning children is to throw a grenade into your own life. She is doing this, Maria said. I don't know why. I only know that she is. How would I prove that? He asked. He left the station with a mind that felt as if someone had loosened a rusted bolt. He walked back into the pediatric ICU, straight into Dr. Hernandez, who had been the only person in days to tell him neutral facts without trying to manage him. How are they? Alejandro asked. Curiously, the doctor said, they are a little better today. The fever has dropped a degree. Is that possible? Alejandro asked. Yes, the doctor said, if they are eliminating something. If someone had been giving a stimulant to infants, Alejandro asked carefully, and then that stimulant stopped, would they get calmer over a couple of days? It would depend on the stimulant, Dr. Hernandez said. But if it were, say, an amphetamine, then yes. 2 to 3 days you would expect a gradual stabilization. Alejandro didn't hear the end of the sentence because Victoria appeared then, smiling like someone with good news. How are my girl? She asked. Better, he said. The fever is down. How wonderful, she said. And the words were right, but the expression was wrong. When you know someone well enough, you can see when their face doesn't match their syllables. What exactly have you been giving them at home? He asked. A natural sedative, she said without pausing. Why? The doctor says they may be improving because something has been stopped, he said. Isn't that the opposite of what you said? Every case is different, she said. Please, Alejandro, don't try to play doctor. Let me handle it. And what medicine did you bring today? He asked. Just vitamins, she said too quickly. The next morning, Dr. Hernandez called him aside with a folder in his hand. The tox screen is back, he said. Your daughters have amphetamine in their blood. Significant levels. The pattern suggests repeated exposure for weeks. Alejandro's legs went soft. Where could that? Who? It could come from only a few places, the doctor said bluntly. This is pure, not something an amateur prepares in a kitchen. Excuse me, here's the person I needed to speak with. Victoria came around the corner. Doctor? She said, pretending to be someone who was routinely consulted and never suspected. We found amphetamine, Dr. Hernandez said without theater, in both babies. That is impossible, she said, and her voice had a quiver she could not quite iron out. I gave them natural sedatives. I must have left the prescription at my office. The levels indicate dosing over at least 2 months, the doctor said. Can you explain that? It was the maid, she said instantly. She was doing it. The maid has been in custody for 5 days, the doctor said softly. The most recent levels indicate dosing within that time. Victoria's mouth opened and closed. She tried to say, this is a misunderstanding, but the words got lost on the way up. I need to go get the paperwork, she said finally, turning. You will not be leaving, the doctor said, nodding to the 2 security officers who had been waiting to be asked. We will review the security footage as well. The footage showed what everyone had expected not to see. A doctor with a syringe leaning over infants at 3 a.m. when fewer eyes watched. It showed practiced hands, fast and quiet. It showed a guilty angle. In a small room off the security office, Victoria sat at a table while 2 detectives and a doctor watched her practice denial like a religion. We have the tox report, one detective said. We have your presence daily in the home. We have the timeline. We have footage from last night. The question is, why? I never gave those girls amphetamines, she said, jaw tight. Doctor, the detective said patiently, we are done with whether. We are at why. She looked around. Alejandro stood with his knuckles on the back of a chair, white where skin went over bone. He had not said a word. He did not have to. The whole room was him right now. I didn't want them to die, Victoria blurted, and the sentence surprised even her. It was like a leak springing under pressure. So you did give them something, the detective said. She inhaled, exhaled. I love him, she whispered. I have loved him since his wife died. I thought if I took care of the girls if he needed me, he would see. You poisoned my daughters for love, Alejandro said, disbelief sitting rough in his voice. It was a small dose, she argued, calculated. I am a doctor. I knew how to manage it. I was going to fix it. And then that maid made them sleep and you smiled at her and all my work, You increased the dose, he said, voice nearly empty, because you were jealous. Not jealous, she said, in love. Love does not harm what is innocent, he said, and the words were simple enough to be irrefutable. The detective signaled to the officers. Dr. Victoria Del Valle, you are under arrest for attempted homicide and criminal malpractice. They took her away while she said his name like a curse and a plea, and something she would later tell herself meant passion. The door closed. The fluorescent lights hummed. The room huffed an exhausted breath. I have to get someone out of jail, Alejandro said to Dr. Hernandez, and the doctor nodded because that was the first sense the man had made in days. You would think freeing an innocent person would be as easy as opening a door. You would be wrong. Paperwork, stamps, conversations, forms. It took hours and then more hours. The sergeant told him they would release Maria that day, but the formal process of clearing her record would take longer. He said he would handle the rest later. Right now he wanted one thing, to see her walk out. The hallway at the precinct smelled like old coffee and floor wax. Maria stood holding a plastic bag with everything she had worn coming in. She saw him and did not light up. She did not move fast or slow. She just stood there and let him look at what he had done to her. She confessed, he said. You were right. I was wrong. She made a laugh that had no laughter in it. I was right, she said, and you believed her for months and me for not a day. He inhaled. He exhaled. I am sorry, he said, and the words were so small compared to the weeks she had had that she wanted to throw them back at him. You ruined my life, she said quietly. My mother told me I was dead to her. My face was on television. Nothing you do can make last week not have happened. Let me try, he whispered. I want to go home, she said. I will gather what is left of my life and put it in a pile and see what can be saved. He nodded. He stared at the ground. The girls, he said, because he could not help himself. They miss you. How are they? She asked, and then wished she hadn't. Better, he said. Better every day. Without that. Good, she said. She turned for the door. Come back, he said. Please. No, she said. I do not trust you. Trust is not a faucet. It is a plant that grows when someone carries water for it every day. For a week he called and she did not answer. For 2, he sent messages to her mother. For 3, he begged Esperanza to ask again. With conditions, Maria said finally, standing on the doorstep like a soldier in front of a general. I will return because I love them. I will not be your maid. I will care for the girls during the day. I will go home at night. I want double what you paid me, no triple. Yes, he said immediately. Take more. And don't talk to me about anything that is not the girl, she said. We are not friends. We are not confiding. We are employer and employee. That is all. In the first days back, she moved through the house like a ghost who had decided she would haunt this place only until the business that holds her here is concluded. Good morning, he would say. Good morning, she would say. Did they sleep? He would ask. They took milk at 5, she would reply. Thank you, he would murmur, and that would be that. But the babies bloomed. Sleep, like water, revived everything. Their skin brightened. Their eyes found faces and lingered. Their bodies remembered how to laugh. The house remembered how to sound like life instead of a complaint. Maria did not bloom. She startled at sirens. She froze when someone knocked at the door too hard. She slept on the living room couch during the baby's nap and woke shouting sometimes. He found her once in the bathroom shaking and had the sense to stand in the doorway and ask, Do you want me to do anything? She said, No, and breathed through it. And later he hired a security guard to walk her to and from the bus and posted a man outside her mother's house and did not tell her it was expensive. He told her it was responsibility. A reporter came. Maria had been making puree in the kitchen, and the doorbell rang, and when she saw the microphone through the glass, she went white and then gray. "No press," she whispered. "They will follow me. They will follow my mother." He told her he would handle it and did, and when he came back, she was still clutching the dish towel like a rope. "I'll make this right," he said. "You cannot," she said. "You can try. That is different." He learned the difference between doing a thing because it made him feel like a good person and doing a thing because it was the next right thing in a line of right things that did not make you feel anything at all. He sat down in front of a camera and looked into it and said, "I made a mistake, and she is innocent, and I am sorry." He did not ask for applause, he asked for decency. A little of it came. Doña Carmen stood on the mansion step one morning and asked to see her daughter and apologized in a way that broke a woman and put one back together at the same time. "I said terrible thing," she whispered. "I didn't know how to carry the shame." Maria said she needed time because sometimes the only thing you have to give is a measure of distance. Carmen nodded. She brought tortillas the next week. Maria sat at her mother's kitchen table a month later and stirred soup for the first time since she'd been put in a cage. In the evenings, Alejandro began to notice things about Maria that had nothing to do with the twins' bottles. The patience in her voice when Isabella was frustrated. The humor in her face when Sophia tried to put both hands in the same sleeve. The way she found words that didn't make exhaustion heavier. He found her in the garden one afternoon, eyes shining as she showed Isabella how to clap, and he said, "She is learning fast." And Maria said, "She is curious," and smiled an actual smile. Later, when the girls were down, he asked, "How did you get so good with babies?" She looked out the window at the lemon tree and said, very quietly, "I lost one." He didn't say, "I'm sorry," which is what men say when they do not know what else to say. He said nothing for the amount of time you should be silent after someone tells you a thing like that. Then he said, "Would you tell me his name?" "Miguel," she said. "He would have been this age." Jorge. That night he stared at the ceiling while the house breathed around him and thought about the ways he had failed not just her, but everyone who had been small and in need of something only a gentle hand could give. The twins turned 6 months old, and Alejandro set out paper plates and little crowns and put a candle and mashed banana because there is no rule that says you cannot celebrate that way. Carmen came, quieter and warmer. Esperanza wore her nice blouse. A few friends came who had been kind even when the story was loud. In the middle of the tiny party, Sophia shouted, "Ma, ma," while looking right at Maria, and the whole room laughed because joy does that to people. It makes them startle at good things, as if goodness really could surprise them. Outside afterward, Alejandro walked Maria to the big iron gate. "You look beautiful today," he said, and it came out miraculously, without sounding like a line. She blushed and said, "Thank you." And he asked, "Do the girls make you happy?" And she said, "Yes." And he said, "Only them?" And she met his eyes and said, "Good night." And he stood there longer than he needed to with his hand on the gate, understanding how hard certain sentences are to say when you have used up your words surviving. Time did what time does it turn seeds into leaves. The conversations got longer. They wandered off script. "Did you love your wife?" Maria asked once because it was there in the air. He told her the marriage had been arranged between families and he had learned love like you learn a language from an old book, and then grief had come and he had thought that was the only language he would ever speak again. "I was wrong," he said. "There are other tongues. There is this." "I'm afraid," she said, "of believing, of losing." "Then I will fight," he said simply. "For you, for us." August brought heat and 1,000 insects singing in the garden. The girls pulled themselves up on a low table and wobbled on chubby legs and laughed at their bravery. "They'll walk soon," Maria said. "They'll talk soon," he said. "Isabella said, 'Mama' yesterday," he said bravely, and Maria said, "She was looking at you." And he said, "I think she was looking at you." And then Sophia said, "Mama," in a perfectly timed whisper, and looked at Maria with bright, knowing eyes, and the world tilted a little, and then righted itself on a different axis. "What if we try?" he asked then, because the universe had delivered him his sign. "What if we fail?" she asked. "What if we don't?" he said. "Do you love me?" she asked, needing to hear the shape of it in the air. More than anything, he said, and said it the way you tell someone the temperature and the time simply true. Even though I am not rich, she said, testing for insult. Money does not build the parts of people that matter, he said. You have a heart that understands what babies who cannot speak are saying. You have a spine that did not break when the world tried to make you bend. That is what I care about. What will your family say? She asked. That I am lucky, he said. She smiled then. One of those slow smiles that begins somewhere deep and moves up into the face. Okay, she said, and he knew he would hear that syllable for years and never get tired of the way it unlocked things. A year later, in the same yard where she had first listened at a window and suspected a truth that would overturn a life, Maria stood in a simple dress and took the hands of the man who had learned how to say sorry and then learned what it meant. The girls wore little shoes and ran the way children do when they are certain someone loves them enough to catch them when they fall. Mama, they shouted in the middle of the vows, and everyone laughed because sometimes happiness is not sophisticated. It just arrives, loud and real. In the quiet after the party, they walked into the girls' room. The nightlight painted soft gold on the walls, and the girls slept the way babies are supposed to sleep, loose and breathy, dreams gentle. They've grown, Maria whispered, and the sentence carried with it 1,000 hidden sentences. They survived. We did too. We did not drown in the story someone else wrote for us. They will grow knowing, Alejandro said, that you chose them. That's a kind of miracle people forget when they talk about blood. Chose, she repeated. That word means everything. He put his arm around her, and she leaned into that space in a way she never had when she needed to run. Thank you, she said into his shoulder. For what? He asked. For giving me a chance to be a mother, she said. And to be happy. Thank you, he said, for teaching me that love is not a desperate thing. It is a careful thing that shows up every day and promises true things and keeps those promises even when the house is loud and the world is watching. Far away, in a cell where the television glow was brighter than the sun, a woman watched a wedding on the news and tasted the metallic tang of a life that had been built out of calculation and then had been taken away by the simplest force on earth. The truth. She had wanted a man to love her. She had tried to bend the world to make it so. It bent back. Sometimes justice does not roar. Sometimes it just takes something and leaves a quiet square in the center where a person learns how to sit. Back in the house that had once held its breath, the doors were open to the night. There was soup in the kitchen that would taste better in the morning. Small shoes lined up by the door, a lemon tree whispering in the dark. The past was behind them, still rainy, still capable of knocking on the door if they let it. The future was a path under their feet. They walked it together, holding the small hands of two girls who had learned that love was something you could hear. The way a voice softened as it came closer. The way laughter sounded when it returned to the same room again and again. The way a mother says your name when she chose you twice, once with her hands and once with her heart. If you had stood outside the gate then and listened hard enough, you would have heard it. Not crying, not silence. A house exhaling, a home.